She'll tell you she doesn't think about sex that much. She'll roll her eyes when you assume her mind is dirty. She might even laugh, saying that's such a guy thing, and yet her fantasies are running the entire operating system of her desire. You think you're the driver. Wrong. You're just the passenger. The map, the roads, the hidden turns. Those are written by fantasies she doesn't even admit to herself. She'll tell you she wants stability. Then she'll find herself restless, scrolling Instagram, drawn to the tattooed stranger who radiates danger. She'll say she wants a good guy, then lose interest the moment he gives her everything she asked for. She'll settle into comfort, then daydream about being overpowered, pursued, undone. It doesn't matter what she says out loud, her fantasies always get the last word. The hidden theater. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A woman's fantasy life is not a sideshow, it's the main show. For you, fantasy is dessert. Extra flavor on top of hunger. You see something hot, you're turned on. Simple. For her, fantasy is the recipe itself. Without narrative, without psychology, without meaning layered into the experience, sex often falls flat. That's why she can look at the same man one week and feel nothing, then the next week suddenly crave him like oxygen. What changed? The external man stayed the same, but internally, her fantasy machine kicked in. A look, a word, a situation. It slotted into a storyline in her mind. Now he's not just a guy, he's the dangerous protector, the puzzle she has to solve, the powerful man who chooses only her. Her desire doesn't respond to raw data. It responds to stories. Why fantasy matters more for women. For centuries, women were punished for openly expressing desire. Desire was treated as shameful, dangerous, corrupting. So what did women do? They didn't stop wanting. They just shifted the battlefield. Fantasy became the safe laboratory, a hidden place where she could be reckless, submissive, dominant, adored or devoured, without consequences. While the outside world demanded she be nice, polite, controlled, her inner world built a kingdom where she could be wild. So while men turned to porn, women turned to stories, novels, daydreams, forbidden romances, fan fiction, erotica, not pornography, words not visuals, because words gave her something more important than raw imagery, context. Fantasy was never optional for her. It was survival. The 5 archetypes of female fantasies. Female fantasies scatter across infinite variations, but they keep orbiting around a set of powerful archetypes. Think of these like recurring dream characters, roles that appear again and again in her erotic imagination, each revealing something deeper about her hidden wiring. 1. The powerful man who kneels, the billionaire, the king, the CEO. It's not his money that arouses her, it's his options. Out of every woman he could have, he obsesses over her. His wealth, his authority, his dominance, they're not the point. The point is that he could have anyone, and yet he loses control only for her. This fantasy isn't about being spoiled with gifts. It's about being the exception, the one woman who brings the ruler of empires to his knees. That's why the Christian Grey type works. Not because of private jets, but because the man who controls everything suddenly can't control himself around her. 2. The authority of mastery. The surgeon with steady hands. The professor who commands a lecture hall. The artist consumed by creation. It's not about titles, it's about competence. Competence is erotic because it signals intensity, control, presence. When she sees a man fully absorbed in mastery, her brain reads it as, this is how he'll be with me. That's why you fixing her car that one time turned her on more than all your gym selfies combined. Competence is foreplay. Expertise is sex appeal. 3. The beast who softens. Every vampire romance, every werewolf saga, every bad boy narrative sells the same drug, danger tamed. He is brutal with the world, but tender with her. He could destroy, but he chooses devotion. The wolf bares his teeth to everyone else, but nuzzles into her hand. It's not safety she craves here. It's the thrill of danger transformed into loyalty. This is why the bad boy phase exists. It's not stupidity. It's the hunger to feel like the one woman who can tame the beast. 4. The protector. The bodyguard who takes a bullet, the soldier who comes home, the man who places her at the center of his universe. This isn't macho posturing, it's existential safety. The protector fantasy is about more than physical defense, it's about emotional sanctuary. It's about being the place where she can finally collapse, where she doesn't have to be strong, where she's held together when everything falls apart. It's why something as small as walking on the outside of the sidewalk or putting a hand on her lower back in crowds can trigger deep arousal. Those gestures whisper, you're valuable, I've got you. 5. The puzzle man. He's distant, hard to read, aloof. She doesn't know if he'll text back. She doesn't know if he wants her. Every unanswered message, every unreadable silence lights up her nervous system like a slot machine. This isn't cruelty, it's scarcity. The puzzle man represents the fantasy of earning access, winning what others can't, solving the mystery nobody else could. And here's the cruel twist. While you think consistency and openness will make you irresistible, she sometimes hungers for exactly the opposite: rarity, unpredictability, the chase. Why these fantasies control her? Notice what all these archetypes have in common. Power mixed with vulnerability, strength combined with selective softness, contrast, danger tempered by devotion. She doesn't want a man who's simply safe, or simply strong, or simply wealthy. She wants a man who is formidable in the world, but undone by her. This isn't about taming a puppy. It's about reaching the unreachable, being the one person who sees behind the armor, who touches the rawness no one else gets to touch. And because these archetypes are written so deeply into her psyche, they control her reactions. She may tell herself she wants one thing, but her body will betray her when confronted with the fantasy that matches her wiring. The evolution of fantasy over time. Her fantasy map isn't frozen. It evolves as she does. Early 20s, she's magnetized by danger, bad boys, chaos, intensity. She wants to feel alive, to burn, to be reckless. The uncertainty isn't a flaw, it's the feature. Every ignored text, every unpredictable appearance is foreplay. Light 20s. Burned enough times, she craves stability, but not boredom. Now the protector becomes attractive. Reliability is no longer a turn-off, it's a sign of value. And a man who can plan a future becomes sexier than the man who can't plan next weekend. 30s and beyond. As she establishes herself, the authority fantasy rises. She doesn't want your potential anymore. She wants your mastery. She doesn't want to raise you. She wants to admire you. Competence, expertise, achievement, they become aphrodisiacs. But here's the secret. She never abandons the old archetypes. She layers them. That's why a married woman with kids still gets a thrill when the tattooed ex posts a photo. It's not betrayal, it's psychology. Different fantasies serve different stages, and sometimes they overlap. The bad boy taught her she was desirable. The protector teaches her she's valuable. The authority shows her she's worthy of excellence. Different lessons, different seasons. Fantasy concordance, the combination lock of desire. Here's where men get it wrong. They think arousal is a switch, on or off. But for her, arousal is a combination lock. Each woman has a sequence, an exact order in which fantasies need to be triggered for her body to fully surrender. For one woman it might be emotional intimacy, competence displayed, physical escalation. For another, mystery, pursuit, protector safety, then surrender. It's not about copying moves, it's about recognizing her personal concordance. That's why what worked for your ex won't work for her. Why what turned her on last week might fail this week. Her sequence is dynamic, shifting with her mood, her stress, her sense of self. You're frustrated because you're skipping steps, trying to go straight to physical touch. But for her, foreplay often started hours ago, or days ago. Her arousal might begin when you fix something without asking, when you stand up to someone rudely dismissing her, when you share something passionately, showing intensity. While you think foreplay starts when clothes come off, she might have been aroused since you parallel parked flawlessly 6 hours earlier. Her body is a vault. Fantasy is the code. Fantasy is power and prison. Now here's the paradox. Fantasies liberate her, but they also trap her. She may crave dominance but feel ashamed of it. She may long for danger but know it's destructive. She may fantasize about multiple men but punish herself for the thought. Her body responds one way while her brain lectures another. Desire pulls one direction, morality another. This is why she can seem inconsistent. Wildly passionate one moment, cold the next. She's not fickle. She's living in a civil war between fantasy and self-image. And here's the cruel twist. Often, she doesn't even know her fantasies are controlling her. She thinks she's making rational choices. She doesn't see the hidden strings. But you do. If you're paying attention, how fantasies shape real relationships. Every confusing contradiction you've faced with women makes sense once you understand this. Fantasies are pulling the strings. Why does she light up around one man and shut down around another, even if both are good guys? Because one of them accidentally triggered her fantasy blueprint, and the other didn't. Why does she sometimes beg for passion, then recoil when you give it? Because the way you delivered it didn't match the sequence of her fantasy concordance. Why does she say she wants a stable relationship, but then dream about danger? because her conscious desires and her unconscious fantasies are rarely aligned. You thought she was unpredictable, inconsistent, confusing, but in reality, she's consistent to the script her fantasies wrote years before you met her. The cultural fuel behind female fantasies. These fantasies don't exist in a vacuum. Culture feeds them constantly. Look at the media she consumes. Romance novels, always featuring a powerful brooding man with a hidden vulnerability. TV dramas, the detective who risks his life but opens up to only one woman. Movies, the vampire, the CEO, the soldier, the outlaw. Society banned women from speaking their desires openly, so those desires were smuggled into stories, and stories became the vehicle for arousal. While men watched porn, women devoured narratives, and those narratives weren't random. They were coded blueprints of archetypes that still dominate her inner world. Think about it. How many times have you seen live with the bad boy who only softens for her, the protector who sacrifices everything, the authority who commands everyone but worships her? It's everywhere. It's not coincidence, it's demand. Publishers, producers and writers feed what women secretly crave because it sells. The shadow side of fantasy. But here's the dangerous part. Fantasies can be prisons as much as they're pleasures. A woman who craves mystery might sabotage healthy, stable relationships, chasing unavailability again and again. A woman who craves protection might fall into dynamics where she confuses control with care. A woman who fantasizes about danger might tolerate cruelty, mistaking it for passion. Fantasies aren't rational. They don't ask what's good for her. They only ask what turns her on. That's why she can know logically that a man is terrible for her, and still feel magnetic pull toward him. The fantasy isn't aligned with her best interest. It's aligned with her deepest wiring. And here's what most men don't understand. Arguing with her fantasies is useless. Telling her to be smarter or choose better never works, because she's not consciously choosing, she's unconsciously obeying. How men misread fantasies. Here's the tragic comedy. Most men misinterpret what women's fantasies actually mean. She fantasizes about a billionaire. You think she wants money. Wrong. She wants to be the exception to power. She fantasizes about a beast. You think she wants danger in daily life. Wrong. She wants to feel like the one person who can tame what others can't. She fantasizes about a protector. You think she wants macho posturing. Wrong. She wants genuine safety and devotion, the kind that makes her body relax. Men confuse the symbols for the essence. They chase the props, the car, the abs, the bravado, while missing the psychological truth underneath. That's why so many men feel frustrated. I gave her everything she asked for, and it still wasn't enough. Of course it wasn't. You gave her the literal object, not the fantasy essence, the decoding process. So how do you actually decode the fantasies controlling her desire? Simple. Observation. Stop listening only to her words. Watch her patterns. What stories does she consume? The books on her shelf, the shows she binges. These are not random. They're confessions in disguise. What kind of man makes her nervous? The way she fidgets, laughs too loudly, plays with her hair. Those tells reveal her archetype triggers. What moments in life make her light up? Was it when you solved a problem effortlessly? When you stood your ground against someone else? When you suddenly pulled her close with authority? She won't hand you a list, but she leaves breadcrumbs everywhere. A woman obsessed with true crime and dark romances, likely drawn to the beast archetype. A woman who perks up when you passionately explain your expertise. She's responding to authority. A woman who constantly tests boundaries. She's probing whether you're a protector or just pretending. She's not hiding her fantasies. She's broadcasting them in code. Your job is to notice. Concordance in action. Once you've identified her archetype, the next step is learning her concordance, the sequence. Say she's protector-oriented. You don't just announce, "I'll protect you." That's worthless. You demonstrate. You walk her to a car without asking. You notice her anxiety before a meeting and check in. You create an environment where her nervous system finally exhales. Or maybe she's drawn to authority. You don't boast about achievements. You immerse yourself in mastery. You let her see you in your element. Calm, commanding, excellent. Or she craves mystery. You don't play games, but you maintain self-possession. You don't dump your entire life on her lap. You let her earn pieces of you slowly, like unlocking a secret vault. It's not about manipulation, it's about mastery. You're not faking, you're amplifying the qualities that resonate with her deepest wiring. Fantasy versus reality. Now here's a subtle distinction. Fantasies don't always need to be lived out literally. In fact, most women don't want the literal fantasy. She may fantasize about being overpowered, but that doesn't mean she wants a man who disrespects her consent. She may fantasize about chaos, but she doesn't want her actual life wrecked. She may fantasize about a billionaire, but she doesn't want to be treated like a trophy. The fantasy is symbolic. It's about the feeling it generates, not the scenario itself. That's why the man who gets it isn't the one who tries to recreate the porn script. It's the one who understands the psychological flavor behind her fantasy and delivers it safely, respectfully, authentically. Case studies of shifting fantasies. Let's get concrete. Anna, 23, drawn to a musician who barely texts her back. Friends say she's crazy, but the truth? She's living the mystery fantasy. Every unanswered message is gasoline on her fire. Ronro, Rachel, 28. After years of heartbreak, she suddenly finds herself melting for the dependable, kind man she once overlooked. Why? The protector fantasy has matured into dominance. Reliability has become sexy. Sophia, 35. A successful executive herself, she's no longer turned on by potential. She craves mastery. She fantasizes about surgeons, entrepreneurs, men who operate at high levels. The authority archetype has taken center stage. Each woman isn't irrational. She's consistent with the fantasy archetype dominating her current psychological season. Why men fail to evolve. Here's the tragedy. Men often fail not because they're bad partners, but because they don't evolve with her fantasies. The man who first attracted her with mystery keeps trying to play aloof while she's moved on to craving protection. The man who gave her danger in her 20s keeps offering chaos when she now wants stability. She's not bored. She's not bored. She's not broken. She just outgrew the archetype you're still clinging to. The spark didn't die. You just refused to update the software. The rare alignment. When do things truly ignite? When her three pillars align. Psychological. She feels desirable, worthy, alive. Physiological. Her body responds honestly, not through performance. Cognitive. Her mind gives permission instead of judgment. When those align, when her fantasy concordance is respected and her archetype engaged, she transforms. That's when she becomes the sexual goddess you glimpsed once and have been chasing ever since. It's rare, but it's possible. And when you learn how to read her fantasies instead of fighting them, you can recreate it. The responsibility of knowledge. Now here's the warning. Knowledge is power, and power can corrupt. Some men will hear this and think, great, I'll manipulate her fantasies to control her. That's not mastery, that's exploitation. The point isn't to trick her. The point is to understand her, to stop being confused, to stop misreading her signals, to finally speak the language her body and mind have been screaming in code. This isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about refining who you already are, showing up in ways that resonate with her deepest wiring. When done with integrity, it creates intimacy. When abused, it creates trauma. The choice is yours. The mastery of desire. Stop thinking sex is about positions or frequency. Stop thinking attraction is about looks or money. It's about mastery of the inner world. The man who wins isn't the richest, not the hottest, not even the nicest. He's the one who pays attention, who listens, who observes, who evolves. He doesn't fight her fantasies. He learns to dance with them. He doesn't try to erase them. He amplifies their essence in ways that make her feel safe, seen, and alive. Because once you understand the fantasies that control her desire, you stop being another guy in her story. You become the man her story bends around. The man who doesn't just touch her body, he unlocks her soul. And nothing is more addictive than that.